Hi, my name is Yasmin Terehi. I recently completed my 2-month transformational leadership program, and the results were powerful. If you want to live an exciting life and fulfill your highest potential in 2023 and beyond, I have an incredible opportunity for only a few more individuals to join the next cohort. I will personally be coaching a small group on how to discover and clear your limiting beliefs, how to manage your energy instead of your time, how to tap into the power of your intuition, and how to use discernment so that you can start living a life full of ease, abundance, and flow. As someone who has helped countless entrepreneurs and CEOs open doors of possibility they never thought existed, I can tell you that this strategy will completely transform your life. Best part, you'll 10x your output and unlock your creative genius. I'll work with you weekly to overcome your limiting beliefs and transform that into a new self-concept. I'll teach you how to create clarity, systems, and processes, and I'll also help you develop your intuition. You'll get access to some of the best material that will also help you manage your energy, and you'll get access to guided meditations that are not available anywhere else. This method is so effective. If you'd like to join the waitlist, you can find the link in the show notes or navigate to www.yasminterehi.com/gateways-to-awakening/. Hi, my name is Yasmin Terehi, and this is Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Today's episode is about creating a visionary business and walking a magical path towards the life of your dreams with Marc Allen. Marc Allen is an internationally renowned seminar leader, entrepreneur, author, and composer. He co-founded the New World Library with Shakti Gawain in 1977 and has guided the company as president and publisher from a small startup to its current position as a major player in the independent publishing world. He's written several books, including The Magical Path, The Greatest Secret of All, The Millionaire Course, Visionary Business, and so many others. He's an incredible speaker and seminar leader. He works with people around the globe to craft lives of lasting abundance and prosperity. And I was introduced to Marc by my dear colleague, Dr. Francesca McCartney, who said I had to have him on the show. So thank you so much for joining us, Marc.
Well, thank you for that introduction. When I hear something like that, it always sounds like I'm so busy when I'm really very lazy. That's part of my dream is success with ease and not working too hard. But I've just been doing it many years, and all that stuff adds up after a while.
I love that. And I think this definition that success has to come with hard work is sort of a program that has been, popular, especially in Western culture. And so I love this idea that you're lazy and that your success and the things that you wanted to create have come easily. Marc, I'd like to talk a little bit about the word magic, and it feels like that's a powerful word in your work, and especially in the book that you wrote, The Magical Path. What does a magical life and a magical path mean to you?
I've always been fascinated with magic from childhood on, but real magic, not stage magic or fantasy magic. Real magic. What I've come to believe over the years is that magic is just another way to look at the process of creation, and that the creation of this whole universe, this world, and us sitting here talking is a completely magical process, the way I look at magic. So it's all magic. Yeah. So you can either describe things in terms of magic. So I did Magical Path for people that love the idea of magic and simple rituals that can engage the forces of magic. Or then I wrote a book called Visionary Business, which is the same process, but I didn't use magic at all. I used strategic planning. It's the same thing. There are great forces of creation all around us, and we can never fully understand them because they are mysterious. They're I think it's a mystery we'll never fully comprehend, the forces of creation, but we can set them in motion in our lives. And we can do it through magic, or we can do it through just visionary business, strategic planning. making plans and taking the first steps toward the fulfillment of them.
So, Mark, I want to actually dive into that point. What are some ways for those who are listening that can really create more magic in their life? And are there tools and frameworks that you can suggest that they start with?
Yes, yes. I teach the same thing over and over because I teach what I discovered the day of my 30th birthday. I spent my 20s calling myself a workshop junkie and studying all these different things, but I wasn't implementing anything. The day I turned 30, I spent alone pacing up and down in my little slum apartment. I had no job. I had no income at all, no family support. And I realized at that point I didn't even have a vision of the future. I I had no goals. And that day changed my life. When I look back years later, I really think I was a different person in many important ways at the end of my 30th birthday than I was at the beginning, at the end of the day. I think one day changed my life. And to this day, that is what I teach or suggest to people to do what I did or take it and run with it and do their version of it the day I turned 30. What I did was very simple. I took 4 simple steps that anybody can do. I paced up and down, and then I remembered a little game I'd played during this disastrous back to the land experiment I tried when I was about 22. That didn't work at all for me. I'm not a back to the land type guy, I found at all. But I remembered one night we were sitting around a fire, and this one couple said, "Let's play this game we play at church camp." They taught church camp every summer to a bunch of kids. They said, "Let's just imagine 5 years have passed and everything has gone as well as you can possibly imagine. What would your life look like? What is your ideal scene?" They called it ideal scene. And we all went around the fire and said something. I tried years later to remember what I said. I don't remember a word of what I said. So it had no impact on my life whatsoever. But the day I turned 30, then, I remembered that game and I said, okay, this is a very good idea. This is a good thing to do. This time I'm going to write it down so I remember. And I took a sheet of paper and I wrote ideal scene at the top. And I imagined 5 years had passed. So I was 35, which seemed tremendously old to me at the time. And I said, okay, here, what's my ideal? Much to my amazement, because I'd had no interest in business. I'd never taken a business course. I actually was a theater major in college and went into theater and music. So I had no interest in business at all. But what spilled out was the first thing was I have a successful publishing company that publishes my books and other books. And as I thought it through, I remembered as soon as all these doubts and fears came up. And one thing was all the conditioning programming we all have that you mentioned right at the beginning tied in with business. Oh, you create a business. I heard my father's voice say, you got to work 60 hours a week if you start up a company. That's just the way it is. And you got to work really hard. And then I thought, no, this is my ideal. I'm daring to dream my ideal. So I wrote, I have a successful company and I work in an easy and relaxed manner, a healthy and positive way. A phrase I got from this Unity Church minister named Catherine Ponder, whose books I'd read in the 70s about prosperity. A great phrase. And so, in fact, I even put in big letters at the top of my sheet of paper, ideal scene, in an easy and relaxed manner, a healthy and positive way, in its own perfect time for the highest good of all. And then I listed, first, I have a successful publishing company. Second, I write wonderful books that have a great impact in the world. 3, I record my music. 4, I have a big white house on a hill in Marin County, California. That to me was my dream. I was living in Oakland, California, in a very funky area, very not a good neighborhood at all. The buildings had bars on the windows, and it was no place you want to raise a child. So it was certainly no place I'd want to live. So my dream was across the bay, Marin County. It's 75% open, undeveloped. It's beautiful, beautiful. So I said, okay, I want a big white house on a hill in Marin. That's my ideal. And I listed those things. Of course, I was just overwhelmed with doubts and fears, overwhelmed with them. But I went on ahead to the second thing. I realized within my ideal scene was a whole list of goals, and I just wrote my goals down on another sheet of paper. I put goals and dreams at the top. 1, start a publishing company. 2, start writing a book. 3, start recording your music. 4, start learning about real estate. It was all start, start, start because I had nothing going whatsoever. I stared at that. Again, doubts and fears were just overwhelming me, but I just plowed on. And I did a third thing. I made another list of my dreams and goals as affirmations, a list I carry around today in my pocket and have for over 40 years now. I have my list. And so it's as an affirmation. So it's 1, I put at the top in big letters, in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way, in its own perfect time for the highest good of all. 1, I am now creating a beautifully successful publishing company. 2, I am now writing books that have a great impact in the world. And I turned every one of my goals into an affirmation and started reading that. I stared at that, and then over the next day or 2 or 3, simple plans for emerged for everyone. And that the fourth powerful thing I did that really worked for me is I made a one-page plan for each one of my goals, realizing this is something to impress on your subconscious mind. And so the simpler, the better. So a one-page plan for me is what worked. My one-page plan then for starting my company was simply, I found these plans do not have to be great at all. They just have to impress your subconscious and keep you moving toward that goal. So literally my first plan, my first business plan, at the top, the goal was I am now creating a successful publishing company. The 2 things I could think of were 1, read a used business 101 textbook, because I never had anything to do with business. I didn't know the difference between a corporation and a partnership, and I didn't know anything about business. I'd had no interest. So 1, read a textbook, and 2, talk to people that I know that know more about business than I do. And that was it. That was my entire plan. That's all I could think of. But I took those 2 steps and they led to the next thing. The other essential thing I did, I often say there's just 2, the older I get, the simpler I see it. There's just 2 essential things. 1 is to have that dream, have that goal, make a plan, keep moving ahead toward it in any way you can. But the other essential thing is to deal with the doubts and fears that inevitably arise. I had the doubts and fears nearly overwhelmed me. I remember them vividly to this day. I remember their exact words in my head as I'm pacing up and down my little apartment doing these things. They literally said, "Oh, Mark, that's way too much. You're doing 4 things. You want to do a business, and you want to write books, and you want to do music, and you want to get into real estate. That's way too much. Just pick one thing and focus on that. Don't be a jack of all trades, master of none. Just pick one thing, focus on that." And I knew whatever thing I picked, then my doubts and fears would start shooting that down, saying, "Who are you to think you can start a business or write a book or record music and make it work or get into real estate, for God's sake? Who are you? Look at your track record. You've been a total failure in everything you've tried through your 20s." And so these doubts and fears just were overwhelming me. And I kicked back. I said, okay, I'm going to dream my ideal. And I literally said to my doubts and fears, this is a worthwhile experiment. I said, this is a good experiment for me to do. Let me try it as an experiment. I latched onto that word because I just heard a friend talking about a man named Buckminster Fuller who went around speaking in the 60s and 70s. He said he came to a point when he was in his 20s where he was either going to commit suicide or look at his life as a unique experiment. And he decided, fortunately, to do the latter. And in his 70s, he was still speaking about his 50-year experiment. So I latched onto that word. I said to my doubts and fears, literally, I just said, okay, I'm going to try this experiment. I'm going to go for it all. I'm going to go for this whole ideal scene. I'm going to keep affirming this. I'm going to do what I can. And I don't want you to bug me for a year. Give me a year or maybe even two to try this. And this is my experiment. It's a worthwhile experiment. My doubts and fears said, it won't work, absolutely. And I said to them, well, if it doesn't, I'll be no worse off than I am right now, right? And even my doubts and fears had to say, well, yeah, that's true. I had no job, no income. I was scrounging every month to get $65 together for rent. Rent was cheap then. And and
$65.
I remember thinking it was almost magical how I did manage every month just to come up with $65. I thought, oh. So I realized what I was really intending and affirming really was working, and that was to get $65 a month together. That was the level I was living on before my 30th birthday. And then after I said, okay, I'm going to take everything up a quantum leap. I'm going to really go for my dreams and I'm going to do it. And my final thing was, I have a life of ease too. I said, I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it in my own lazy way. That's part of my experiment. Dawson Fear said, it won't work. You got to work really hard. I said, I want to experiment with this. I want to keep my hours. I'd had a band, a rock band, a spiritual wild rock band in my late 20s for a while. And I had been an actor in my early 20s. And in both cases, I loved the hours because you never did a thing till 1 in the afternoon. So I said, okay, this is my experiment. I'm going to be as lazy as I want to be. I've never been a morning person. I usually sleep till around 11. And so I said, I want to continue that. I'm going to continue sleeping till 11 and working when I feel like it. And that's part of my experiment. Can I start a successful business and sleep till 11 and not do Mondays? Because I never liked Mondays. They were moon days. I think Monday is the worst day to start a work week. Tuesday is better. Tuesday it's Mardi in French. It's a Mars day. That's better. So I took Mondays, I took mornings, and that was my experiment. And I
Wow.
found within a year that experiment was working.
Wow. Marc, oh my gosh, you said a lot, and I want to double click on a couple things. So inspiring. I actually read a number of your books, and it's so funny how so many people had recommended your work to me, and I had found it kind of on my own already. I want to talk a little bit about the repetition piece. Like, how often did you repeat your affirmations and look at your list of goals? Like, was there anything about the frequency of that? And you talk a little bit about visualization. And I know that for those who don't know, Shakti Gawain was the author of Creative Visualization. I'm curious, if that's something that you implemented very early on as well, and maybe you can walk us through that process.
Hmm. Yeah, in terms of goals, I said to myself I'd read them through. I'd read the list once a day, and I didn't do that. I didn't even do that. I just occasionally read it, and I would occasionally pull out my list of goals and pick one and read that. But I did not do it that much. I remember thinking you just have to do it enough times so your subconscious says yes to it. Some brilliant person, I don't know who, but said our subconscious mind says yes to every one of our thoughts. So when we do affirm, when we say, I am now creating a successful business, our subconscious will say yes and get right to work showing us the next step to take. But if our next thought is, oh, but it's so hard to succeed, you got to work so hard, our subconscious says, yes, it's so hard to succeed for you with those thoughts. Yes, that's true. And I think that's how the process works. So I really think it's not necessary to do affirmations all that much, but you just need to do them enough so your subconscious says yes to it. And when you find yourself telling yourself something really negative, like "Oh, this is so hard," or what, that's the time to just even say to that thought, "Cancel, cancel," or "delete," and then say an affirmation. I am now creating the life of my dreams, whatever you're creating. Say a statement that directly counteracts that negative thought. A counter statement, my friend Sark calls it. So that's what I often did. I'm not disciplined at all. I did not read them every day, but I did say them when I found myself thinking really negative thoughts. And I'd let go of that negative thought, and then I would put in my affirmation. I am now creating a successful company in an easy and relaxed manner, a healthy and positive way.
Mm. That's so powerful because I think a lot of folks have, bottlenecks when they start getting towards that momentum, but then, they don't have consistency. So that's like a key point, coming back to this vision, coming back to your goals. I love that
Yeah.
yeah, and I love that you added this piece about in an easy and relaxed manner because that's so powerful. A lot of people, may think about their goals, but they don't the energy of it feels like it's kind of wrought with difficulty, packaged with difficulty as opposed to ease and flow. Have you found that moving through your career that you have kept this consistency of ease and flow going?
I have, and it turns out that that's a real radical thing. I hadn't really realized at the beginning how radical a life choice this was, so contrary to what we've learned. So many of us, we have beautiful, wonderful freedom as little kids, but then we go to school and we have to sit there behind a desk for 6 hours, the last thing that a 6-year-old wants to do. And from then on, it's work, work, work. And we're taught to work hard. There's a great value in working hard, and money doesn't grow on trees. And we're taught all these things. Uh, we're, I, I have to tell this story. A few years ago, I was asked to speak at this week-long summer course at a university near here that high school kids were taking. They were 15 to 17 years old, these kids. There were like 300 of them. And I got there 10 minutes early and heard the previous speaker. And the previous speaker was one of these motivational monsters, type A workaholic monsters. And he was programming these kids. He was saying, the way to succeed is you get there earlier than anyone else, you work harder than anyone else, you stay later than anyone else. So, in other words, you don't have any other life other than this total business. And he, these poor kids, I felt sorry for him. So he left. I ambled on stage slowly and I picked up the mic and I said, well, they say the early bird gets the worm, but who knows? The late bird might get a whole Happy Meal. Who knows? And then I'd heard this joke. I said, and they say the early bird gets the worm. Everybody's thinking about the bird. What about that early worm? How did things work out for him? And then I went on to say, you can have a life of ease. You don't have to be a type A. I call myself a type Z, the opposite. I sleep when I feel like it. I always sleep late. I take naps. There have been days when I, get up at 11 or so and I have my hour or so of quiet and getting ready and having coffee. I get to work at 1. I sit down at my laptop, and some days by 2:30, I'm ready for a nap. Just the other day I did that. Just some days my energy just isn't very high in terms of work, so I go take a nap, and,
Mm.
then by 3:30, I've got some energy again, and that has been my dream to just follow my natural physical energy, work when I feel like it, and don't work when I don't feel like it, and that's completely worked out for me.
Wow, I love that so much. So refreshing. This is such a great reminder because I think there's such a cultural program that we always have to be kind of the most productive, the most efficient, running around. And, it's interesting just even noticing that folks who are quote unquote financially successful, a lot of them don't seem very happy or
Right.
content, right? Like having some sense of inner peace. And certainly they don't have, they're not time rich, which I think is actually the real success is having time to yourself and for the freedom to do what you want. So I really applaud you for that. I think it's beautiful, and that you've been relentless with your cultivation of your alone time as well, and taking naps when you need to. So beautiful. Can you also tell us about the Millionaire Course? It's a book that I actually read many, many years ago. It was super helpful for me, and love to talk about why you created it.
Mm. I realized, uh, I did some seminars early on, and I realized I could teach people this stuff. It's all very simple, and so I did a seminar and really put the seminar into a book, and now it's not only on a book. There is a in-depth audio course too that I've done of 12 different downloads that really go through each of the 12 chapters, and uh, I've just had such wonderful feedback from people over the years that always makes my day, makes my week when I get an email from somebody that says they were really struggling. They found Millionaire Course or Visionary Business, and it changed their life. And many, many people have contacted me and told me those stories.
Hmm. Wow, that's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, I mean, it really also changed my life. It's such a different way of thinking about life and success. And I keep thinking about the house in Mill Valley, which is also one of my favorite places in the world. So you got your house in Mill
Mhm.
Valley.
Yep, I did. First, well, we had the office in Mill Valley. My big house I got was in Novato, which is northern Marin, and it's even more open. I like it better because it's not as crowded as Mill Valley. Like there's
Yeah,
no parking meters in town. Mill
nice.
Valley, has parking meters, and it's hard to park. Where I live, it's totally easy to park anywhere, and I love this area.
Hmm. Beautiful. And I want to talk a little bit about finding our own authenticity and life path. How would you encourage people to stay true to themselves? I mean, you spoke about your goals, but like most people don't even know what they want, right? And so I'm curious, as you've achieved the things that you wanted when you first started this process, how do you then, create your new set of goals? Like, how do you know what feels, like an inspired desire or goal from your end?
Mhm, mhm. That's where I do think meditation is very valuable. I'm completely undisciplined about meditation too, but I do often meditate. I often just take walks alone if I need to think about things. I was born with, and I really think each of us at birth were born with certain gifts, and I think every one of us, in some creative, unique way, is a genius. I also think every one of us is clueless in certain areas, and that's what makes life so interesting. But we're all here to continually learn where we're clueless, and I think we're here to teach what we know. So we're all teachers, I think, and we're all students. That's the way I look at it. And one piece I had from birth somehow was I knew it was important to do what I loved. I knew that. I had a dad who had three sons, and he preached study business, work for the corporation. That's what he did for 35 years, and that that was the way to success. My older brother did exactly that. And I know my older brother wasn't really passionate about his work. He was passionate about golf and fishing. And looking back, I mean, I really wish he would have become a golf teacher or a fishing guide or something, But no, he did the corporate thing. And but I looked at that. I said, no, no, that's not for me at all. I completely ignored my dad, knowing that would not work for me. I was going to say that would be hell for me, but that's a little extreme. I do remember my dad saying, "Look, you only work for a corporation 40 hours a week, and you've got another 40 hours to do your creative thing." And I remember thinking, "No, Dad, if I worked 40 hours for in a job I didn't like, I would need that other 40 hours to recover from, I knew that would not work for me. So I became a theater major and, actor and musician, and much to my, folks' dismay, but I knew it was very important to do what I loved, and I think that's the vital key to finding out wha what your dreams and goals are. What do you really love to do? What do you do, in your spare time? What really lights you up? Everybody has something. So my dad would work in his garage and make these beautiful wooden toys for kids. He made trains that worked with wheels and just handcrafted. That was his passion. And in fact, at the after he retired, when he saw my success, he actually said to me, he said, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't work 35 years for the same corporation. I wouldn't do that. And he wished it. And I know he could have been an incredible woodworker and made beautiful things. He could have made it work.
Wow. That's really powerful that your father shared that with you at the end, and what a great reminder for folks, to just do what they love and really not give up on that piece, especially just like you said, to create an experiment, to give it a year or two and see what happens. Uh,
Right. Yeah. I just coached a guy who he is doing well in the corporate world, but he doesn't like it. But he's saved enough money now to have to like live for 2 or 3 years. And so he wants to do what he dreams of, which is writing books, leading seminars, coaching. And so, of course, I said, go for it, go for it, go for it. What's the worst that could happen? You could fail miserably, but at least you gave it a shot. And I don't know anyone who's succeeded who hasn't had failures in the beginning. And I don't know anyone who's gone for their dreams, whether they worked or not, and regretted it. You won't regret it if you go for your dreams. Even if you're 95 years old and you want to be a billionaire rock star, I say go for it. You never know. Go buy a guitar and learn to play it, and who knows what might happen. At 99, maybe you'll have a song on YouTube that go at 100. Maybe you'll be filling on it. Who knows? It's never too late to go for your dreams.
I love that. What a great reminder, Mark. So I want to talk a little bit about visionary business. We briefly spoke about it, but I wanted to really define what is this book about? I read it, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about what the book is about and why you wrote it and why it's important.
Mm. It's for entrepreneurs. It's for a person that wants to create some kind of company or career. Like Millionaire Course somehow seems to appeal to people that are independent in their careers, and visionary business is good if you really want to build a business. But they both have the same material, Billy. Uh, Visionary business has many more specifics. I actually started writing it for my own staff once I grew into having, 18 people working for me, and I wanted to show them how this company started and make sure they understood the values that were there. And they did. They did just by coming there and working there. But so I started talking about all my early mentors and everything. And then I realized, wait, this book could reach a broader audience than just my own staff if I like simplify it. I had all these different mentors where I learned, one thing from this guy, one thing from this woman, one thing here and there. And I ended up sort of fictionalizing things and putting it all in my main mentor's mouth, who was this great old guy named Bernie. He was a wonderful, wonderful, successful character who invested in my company. And he definitely was a mentor. He'd say things like, take care of the company, number one, before yourself, before anybody else. You take care of the company, and then the company takes care of you. You would come up with nuggets of wisdom like that.
So I want to talk a little bit about your writing process. You've written so many books, and I'm really curious, what is that process like for you? How do you get inspiration?
Uh, Good question, because I am totally undisciplined. I know I have some writer friends I know that like write every morning or 5 mornings a week. Yeah, I think, oh, that's great. But I don't at all. I really do have no discipline. I just I just get these ideas wandering around, and I jot them down, and I have piles of notes, and I finally got a sort of a shelf that has all these little spaces. What is this? Got four times. It has like 30 different cubby holes because I have all these ideas, and most of the time when I get these ideas, I'll write them down and then put them aside, and then I'll pick them up and think, oh, no, I, this isn't going anywhere, and it's so much work to write a book. I don't need to write anymore. I put it aside. But certain ones just keep bugging me. They keep bugging me. And certain ones, like Visionary Business, I'll wake up at 3 a.m. with ideas. I, I wrote a lot of that book in the middle of the night. And a lot of it, once the book started, it just took over. I take a lot of hot tubs at night. And I would often start hearing Bernie's voice telling me something in the hot tub that was really good for the book. So I'd literally just run into my bedroom, dripping wet, naked, and write it down because you have to. As soon as those ideas come, you have to catch them right there, right there. If you put it off, I found it suddenly it's not the same at all. You have to catch those ideas right as they come. So literally, I wrote big chunks of the book naked, standing up in my bedroom, dripping wet.
I love that. So we're so similar because I feel like I'm always taking baths and getting inspiration, and it's just in like the most inopportune times. So.
Yes, yes, yeah, inopportune. You never know when.
Oh my gosh. I want to talk about your relationship with Shakti Gawain, and you guys co-founded the New World Library together. It was just a wonderful publishing house that has published a number of incredible books. Can you tell us about that process and perhaps like what what your inspiration was for creating that, what your intention was for creating that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I met her at a weekend workshop in Berkeley, California. I was 28, she was 26. And we just hit it off because we were similar in many ways. We both called ourselves workshop junkies. She had she'd just spent a year in India soaking up all kinds of things, and the weekend where we met was a tremendous experience. The most powerful weekend I'd ever had. Before that, I'd spent 3.5 years at a Tibetan center. And when I took that weekend, I thought, wow, I just learned more in one weekend that really changed my life than I did in 3.5 years studying Tibetan Buddhism. Uh, it was a brilliant weekend led by a man named Ken Kais Jr., who'd written a book called Handbook to Higher Consciousness.
Oh, I love that book.
And So Shakti and I both agreed to come back in the fall and be on the staff for Ken, and we did that. We met again in the fall there, and we're on the staff of that place for a year. And so we assisted him doing all these workshops, and that's where I got the core belief process. Was the, for me, greatest takeaway from that. It's in my books, and it's even, if you go to marcallen.com, you can get the core belief process there. Uh, it was this uh, something we do in every weekend that Ken led, and it really changed my life. It really helped me deal with doubts and fears tangibly, and to this day, I do it and teach it, and then Shakti and I, we left there, and we ended up sort of being tricked into doing a workshop. Uh, we were just supposed to help this guy do a 4-day seminar that ended up in on a New Year's Eve. It was 4 or 5 days, and he hired Shakti and I, and we joined. We needed the money, so I was just going to help him, assist, hand out papers and stuff, and Shakti was going to cook. And he got weirder and weirder before the seminar, and finally had basically a nervous breakdown. He burned the checks that came in saying we shouldn't be attached to material plane. And 10 minutes before the seminar, when 25 people had arrived from all over the country, some had flown in from Florida, uh, we were in the kitchen, the three of us. He said, "I can't handle this." And he went out the back door. And I didn't see him for about a year. So Shakti and I ended up doing the seminar. We said, "Okay, we just threw in everything we learned as workshop junkies." And that's how we got started. And a guy there loved it and invited us to do another one in LA. And and I kept running upstairs. That was back in the old age of typewriters. After every session, because 4 or 5 days we had so many sessions, we did so many things, that I typed up just notes of everyone to give to people so that they remember what we did. Because I know, you forget 80% of what you learn in a day-long seminar immediately, almost, or very quickly. And so I wanted them to remember. So I would type up things and run to Kinko's Copy Center and copy them and hand out copies. And by the end of the 4 or 5 day thing, I had 64 pages of notes. And we started selling it, and I literally looked up book and publish in a dictionary to see, have I published a book? Is that the deal? And it turns out, well, anything with a bunch of pages and a spine is a book. And publishing, if you make 2 copies and give one to your mother, you've technically published your book. So Shakti and I was living with Shakti then, so that's how the publishing company started.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I love that story so much. It's so many synchronicities. Really, really appreciate that. Wow. You really do embody this like life of ease and flow. It's really cool.
Well, I am lazy, and so that became part of my dream. I want to continue to be lazy. I don't like working hard. I don't even like the word discipline at all. No, my favorite days, and this is most days, I wake up and there's nothing in my calendar, or one thing. If it's, I usually, if I have a meeting or an interview like this, I try to make it just that one thing in the day. Uh, I sometimes have 2 things in an afternoon, and that's getting a little too close to being a workaholic for me. So
I love that so much. And you don't feel any sense of boredom. You're very content with that
oh
time. Maybe I shouldn't have asked that question.
yeah, I'm never bored. I'm never bored. But I do take a lot of breaks and do nothing. I have a sign in my office window that says Spanish proverb. It's wonderful to do nothing and then relax afterwards.
Love that. Oh my gosh, it's wonderful to do nothing and relax afterwards.
Yeah, and
That
that's true
is,
enough, because I do find then when I am that lazy and I do nothing for a while and relax afterwards, then suddenly I have a ton of energy. for a while, maybe a pretty short burst, but suddenly, bam, I'll work through 100 emails, or I'll write something, or, I'll work with pretty high energy sometimes.
Mm. And you don't really stay connected to social media as much.
Not a lot. I do quite a bit of Facebook.
Okay.
So I actually have like 4 pages on Facebook. I do a personal one, and then just a general consulting one. And then I do one for writers, the art and craft of publishing. And I do another called Success with Ease. Success with Ease.
Beautiful.
And
Okay.
so I enjoy doing that.
Love that. Okay. What sort of things have surprised you on this journey, Mark, looking back on your career and, what you've accomplished and where you're moving towards?
Well, I mean, definitely the best thing is the impact it's had on other people. I just love the fact that a whole lot of people are living much more enjoyable lives. I hear stories, so often. That's definitely the best part. I mean, I love books. Books have changed my life. In my 20s, I look back, a couple of books really changed my life. And so I love every book we publish. When it comes, the first copies come back from the printer. They always FedEx a few copies, and I just sit down and I just fondle them. I love print books. You know, ebooks are great, but it's not the same tactile thing. I love doing what I do, and the fact that then we get emails and letters from people that are so grateful and thankful. That's the best part of it all for sure.
Mm, love that so much. Wow. What are some kind of mentors, or you mentioned the Handbook to Higher Consciousness, but we know how that story sort of ended, which is so funny because that book was also a huge gateway for me, funny enough, into
Oh,
this path. Yeah.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
but I'm curious, yeah, like, are there any people you're paying attention to right now that you really look up to, or books that you're paying attention to now that you would recommend to our audience? Obviously, besides the books that you've written.
Since '99, it's been Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. I was
Mm,
so blessed to discover that book and be able to publish it. Uh, for years before that, I said this little book called As You Think, or As a Man Thinketh by James Allen was the best book I ever read. I read that in my late 20s. I started putting big quotes up on my wall from the book. Quotes like, "You will become as great as your dominant aspiration. If you cherish a vision, a lofty ideal in your heart, you will realize it." Th- that book really had this huge impact. For years, I said it was the best book I ever read. And then The Power of Now came along. And that literally was the answer to a prayer. I had created my ideal scene completely. I had the big house on the hill. I had the publishing company going along. And I remember I started in the summer of '99 praying to take another quantum leap. Like, it was that vague. I just said, "Okay, universe, I want to take another quantum leap in my emotional contentment and inner peace, and in my abundance, in my level of income. I want to make this leap." And a week or two after I started doing that, The Power of Now just fell into my hands to publish. It's the greatest book I ever read. I think it's the greatest spiritual book of our times. Maybe the greatest, for me, it's the greatest spiritual book of all time.
mm,
It's incredible. So it not only really did take me up a quantum leap into inner peace with phrases uh, like, for instance, for 18 months, I stopped on this phrase in the book, didn't read any further. I just read this every day and I kept repeating it. And the phrase is, "To offer no resistance to life is to be in a state of grace, ease, and lightness." I kept repeating that. And you repeat that, and you are actually summoning grace, ease, and lightness into your life. So not only was it great emotionally, but it also was great financially for us, because we sold 2.5 million hardcover, and now we've sold over 5 million paperback just in the US, and it's in over 50 countries now.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That's incredible. He's so inspirational, also one of my favorites. I love that you mention As a Man Thinketh as well, because I love the whole ideas of law of assumption and law of manifestation, and
Yeah,
in all the ways actually now quantum physics is like proving a lot of these concepts of just thoughts and beliefs and feeling states, and how important they are in being the observer of your reality, and really calling that in. I love that. So Marc, we're wrapping up, but I wanted to ask you just two last questions. What do you want to tell our listeners about their wellness and well-being? What's your main takeaway for our audience? What do you want them to do next?
wellness and well-being. I think just what you were saying, how powerful our thoughts are, we know from physics and just in general. Since I found a book in my early 20s called The Art of True Healing by Israel Regardie. That book gave me just a simple little meditation where I just imagine, and I do this several times a day, I imagine healing light at the top of my head, slowly filtering through my whole body, healing every cell. And I just affirm, I am in perfect health. I am in perfect health. And I think that's the best thing I do for my health. A very simple little meditation. In the morning, I walk out, if it's sunny, and it so often is here in California, and I just face the sun and I feel that radiance in my face. And then I just imagine, visualize, you could say, or just imagine that radiance going through my whole body, slowly, slowly healing every cell. And I really think that's why I've been in perfect health all these years.
Wow. I am in perfect health. I love that meditation. Okay. For folks listening, definitely check that out. Run a few experiments. We learned so much from this conversation. Marc, where can people find you if they want to read your books, if they want to take a course with you? You mentioned Facebook, but can you share your website?
Yes, yes. Thanks for mentioning it. Yeah, it's just marcallen.com, marcallen.com. And they can contact me through there. They can see what I'm doing. They can get the success with these audio. So there's several audio programs. The core belief process is there, and my books. Thanks
Um,
for asking.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Marc, for your time. This was such a wonderful conversation. Really grateful for everything you're doing for humanity and all the people that you've helped. And for our audience, thanks for joining and for listening in this episode. We learned about visionary businesses and how to walk the magical path and so much more with Marc Allen. And you can tune into Gateways to Awakening, where we host one-on-one conversations with leading experts in wellness, well-being, and spirituality. Thanks again.